Ever scrolled through social media and wondered how someone you went to high school with is suddenly posting vacation photos from places you never imagined visiting? Meanwhile, you feel a strange sense of relief because your checking account finally crossed into 4 digits, and for a brief moment, things feel under control. In 2026, this feeling is incredibly common across America, and it creates a quiet confusion about what being rich actually means. When most people hear the word rich, they picture private jets, massive homes, luxury cars, and a life where money never limits a decision. That image feels powerful because it is visible, loud, and constantly reinforced online. But the reality is that this picture of wealth has almost nothing to do with how money truly works in America today. The biggest mistake people make is confusing looking rich with actually being rich. Someone can earn a high income, live in a nice neighborhood, drive a new car, and still be one unexpected expense away from financial stress. At the same time, there are people who live quietly, drive older cars, and rarely show off who are far more financially secure than they appear. This disconnect is why so many Americans feel behind even when they are doing better than average by the numbers. Social media trains us to compare lifestyles instead of balance sheets and income instead of net worth. By 2026, that comparison has become more dangerous because costs have risen faster than most people realize, while expectations stayed high. Before we talk about income levels, net worth tiers, or where you rank, compared to the rest of the country, we need to reset one core idea. Being rich is not about what your life looks like from the outside. It is about how resilient your finances are when nothing goes according to plan. Real wealth shows up quietly in stability, options, and time, not in posts or possessions. Once you understand that difference, the numbers you are about to see will feel very different from what you expected. Because the truth is that in 2026, many people you assume are wealthy are not, and many people you overlook are far closer than you think. This video is not about judging lifestyles or telling anyone how to live. It is about showing what being rich actually means in America right now. And once you see the real thresholds, you will know exactly where you stand and why the gap feels the way it does. Now that we've reset what being rich actually means, it's time to talk about the number most Americans focus on first: income. In 2026, income is still the main way people judge success, even though it only tells part of the story. The median household income in the United States now sits at roughly $83,000 per year. That means half of all households earn more than this amount, and half earn less. Crossing this line technically puts you above average. But in real life, it often still feels tight, especially in major cities. Rent, groceries, insurance, utilities, and basic living costs consume far more income than most people expect. Moving into the top 25% of income earners now requires a household income of around $150,000 per year. At this level, families finally gain some breathing room. They can save consistently, handle unexpected expenses, and reduce paycheck-to-paycheck stress. But financial pressure does not disappear. It simply becomes quieter. Breaking into the top 10% of household income in 2026 requires roughly $250,000 annually. This is the level many people imagine when they think rich. Nice homes, good neighborhoods, regular vacations, and meaningful retirement contributions become possible. However, this number is often misunderstood. Household income does not mean one person earns that amount. In many cases, it represents two solid earners combining incomes. Two people earning $125,000 each can reach this tier, while still feeling stretched if spending rises with income. This is where lifestyle inflation quietly becomes dangerous. As income grows, expectations grow just as quickly. The top 5% of income earners now begins around $335,000 per year. This is serious money territory. Families at this level can afford almost anything within reason, and if managed carefully, can build substantial wealth. But even here, high income alone does not guarantee financial security. There are households earning this much who still carry heavy debt and live with constant financial pressure. Income shows how much money flows in. It does not show how much stays. It does not reveal savings, discipline, spending habits, or long-term planning. This is why income can look impressive, while wealth tells a completely different story. To understand who is actually rich in America in 2026, we have to stop looking at paychecks and start looking at net worth. This is where income stops telling the truth, and net worth finally takes over the conversation. Net worth is simple in theory, but powerful in practice. It is everything you own, minus everything you owe. Your home, your savings, your investments, your retirement accounts, minus mortgages, loans, credit cards, and any other debt. What remains is your real financial position. In 2026, the median net worth of American households sits around $193,000. Half of all households have more than this. Half have less. And while this number sounds decent on paper, inflation has quietly eroded what that money can actually do. For younger Americans, the situation is far more fragile. Households under the age of 35 often have net worth below $40,000. That amount might cover a reliable car, but it is nowhere near enough for a home down payment in most cities. This is why so many young adults feel stuck, even when they are working full-time and doing everything right. Crossing into the top 50% by net worth simply means rising above the median. It does not mean luxury. It does not mean freedom. It means basic stability. You can handle emergencies without panic. You are not one broken appliance away from financial chaos. The top 25% begins around $659,000 in net worth. This is where real financial security starts to appear. These households usually own their homes, have meaningful retirement savings, and can absorb major setbacks without everything falling apart. Breaking into the top 10% requires roughly $1.9 million in net worth. This is a critical threshold. At this level, money begins to work for you. Investments, not paychecks, drive progress. Growth becomes less about effort and more about positioning. The top 5% begins around $3.8 million. This is not flashy wealth. It is durable wealth. These households often have multiple investment accounts, real estate exposure, and long-term planning in place. They are no longer racing against time. And then there is the top 1%. To reach this tier in 2026, households typically need between $11 and $13 million in net worth. This is not a small step up from the top 10%. It is an entirely different financial universe. The gap between tiers is not linear. The jump from the middle class to the top 10% is difficult. The jump from the top 10% to the top 1% is enormous. Each level requires different strategies, different risks, and a fundamentally different relationship with money. This is why so many people misunderstand wealth. They assume that earning a little more or saving a little harder will move them steadily upward. In reality, each tier changes the rules of the game. What works at one level often fails at the next. Net worth reveals who is actually rich in America in 2026 and who is simply earning well. It shows stability, resilience, and long-term positioning. And it explains why two people with similar incomes can end up living in completely different financial realities. This is what life actually feels like at each level of wealth in America in 2026, when the numbers stop being abstract and start shaping everyday behavior. In the bottom 50%, money controls almost every decision. Life feels reactive. One unexpected expense, like a car repair or medical bill, can undo months of effort. At this level, people are not thinking about building wealth. They are thinking about survival and short-term stability. Reaching the top 50% brings relief, but not freedom. You can breathe. You have some savings. You can handle small emergencies without panic. But you are still closely tied to your paycheck, and a job loss remains a serious threat. Stability exists, but it is fragile. The top 25% is where life begins to feel predictable. You own a home, you have retirement accounts, and financial stress fades into the background. Planning becomes possible. This is what many Americans think of as success. And by the numbers, it is. The real shift happens at the top 10%. This is where money starts working for you. Investment returns begin to matter more than annual raises. Decisions become strategic instead of urgent. You think in years, not weeks, and time horizons expand. The top 5% experiences something different again. Work becomes optional, not because people stop working, but because they no longer have to. Time becomes more valuable than income, and choices are guided by preference instead of necessity. The top 1% lives in a different psychological world. Money stops being a constraint and becomes a tool. Daily purchases no longer require thought. The focus shifts toward preservation, influence, and legacy. What surprises most people is that the lifestyle gap between 2 million and 20 million is often smaller than expected. The real difference is mental. One still thinks about money regularly, the other rarely has to. This is the difference between being rich and being wealthy. One is visible, the other is quiet. One is about income, the other is about resilience. In 2026, knowing where you stand on this ladder matters more than chasing how it looks, because clarity beats comparison every time.